you.
Welcome to TruthStream. We're here with Mark Attwood, human extraordinaire, and of course my co-host Joe Rosati. How are you doing, Mark? It's been a little while.
Well, it's great to see your smiling faces again. You had me in stitches on the Truth Tour, and it's lovely to connect again. You guys doing amazing work, and it was a pleasure to meet you.
The feeling's mutual.
It is
phenomenal work. So you're back in sunny Ireland, I think it's right?
Sunny, yes.
freezing cold Ireland, yes.
Yeah, I think we skipped fall and went right into winter in some places.
Yeah, I mean, I had a really sunny tour. Apart from there was a bit of rain in Florida, but the whole tour was sunshine, shorts and sandals for most of it. And then I come back here and it's like.
So the only rain you experienced was in the Sunshine State?
Yeah, ironic, isn't it?
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. So you catch us up. What have you been up to, and where are you headed, and what do we have to look forward to?
Well, I started this podcast 2 and a bit years ago, and it's just been an extraordinary couple of years. I'm about to go. I'm doing a full day show in Manchester in England on Sunday, which is like a healing day. So it's not like a truth day. It's like but everybody there understands the truth, but it's more of a spiritual healing day. And it's this amazing venue. And I've got some really good healers and guests from the show coming to that. So that's special. And then literally I come back for 24 hours and then fly off to Marrakesh to start my 10-day retreat in the Sahara Desert. And we've got 50 people coming there, which is going to be amazing. And so I'm a little bit discombobulated because I just got back from America and then I haven't seen my kids very much, and it's just all a bit crazy, especially after 2 years talking to a laptop.
Right.
I think this getting out there and meeting people is part of this spiritual war and part of the spiritual process and how we are winning. So it's incredibly important work that I think all of us are doing. But actually getting out and meeting people is actually on a multidimensional level far more important than most people realize. They just think it's a tour and you know, like a putting on a show. It's much, much more than that. So, you know, it was a great privilege to do what we just did in the States and meeting amazing people like you. So amazing to actually meet people that are doing this after just knowing them on the screen. So yeah, it's just I'm just really busy trying to keep myself centered and get on with these next 2 jobs. Although I just did a show with Tarot by Janine about an hour ago, and the cards are saying, you know, it's the thing that we're waiting for is fairly imminent. Like she keeps saying days instead of months and weeks. So although we have all been waiting for it for such a long time, it's nuts. But yeah.
And
so I think things are in the air in that respect.
When you got to meet her as we did last on the tour, tell us what it was like to actually finally meet, you know, a few of the truthers, but especially Tarot by Janine. What was the energy like?
Oh, her energy is amazing. She was hilarious. And we had these long car journeys when we were sat in the back together with Bruce Poppy and his wife Natalie, and we had just had such a good laugh. You know, because it's a big relief meeting up with people who've been part of the team, because really we're all part of a team. And because pretty much everybody that I've met that does this sort of thing has a similar story about why they do it. And it was a calling. And, you know, I literally couldn't not do it. I had, I could have said no, but it was such a strong pull to start all of this. So when you meet somebody like Janine, who's I think's done an amazing job for probably millions of people by keeping them calm. And I think that's been part of our job, is to just make people realize that they're not isolated, they're not alone, they're not crazy, you know, especially during 2020 and 2021. And to actually meet up with the people that have done that is just extraordinary. It's like meeting family, you know. And Lewis Herms, who ran the whole Truth Tour, he's like a brother, and you know, and he's very inspirational. I've never seen a man so driven, although we're all driven, you know. Jason Q, just hilarious and brilliant. And all the speakers were, well, almost all the speakers were phenomenal. And there were a lot of speakers that came and went, like you guys you just popped up, and the whole thing was a blur.
Yeah.
You know, a literal blur, because you're not speaking for 20 minutes, you're speaking all day. You know, you're on show all day, and which is that's why my voice is still a bit fucked, but it is just a great privilege, you know, and I can't really put it into words, and it's still I haven't really processed it yet, the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was 35 days on the road, basically. So, but yeah, great stuff, amazing stuff.
Well, and Janine, even, I mean, I never thought I'd be watching a tarot card reader with my mom and have my mom looking forward to, you know, Deep Dive Fridays and different things like that. And there's been so many shows banned off of YouTube that, you know, that's where my mom and I would watch it together. It's the big TV. And so she does wonder what's going on a little bit, because, you know, the Rumble and the BitChute aren't as available, and, you know, and her phone's small. So we're figuring that out, but it was pretty cool to bond over that. And we would watch, you know, things like Santa Surfing and the X-22 report a couple years ago. So it's been a big impact, because, you know, I had to fight like hell to make sure my mom didn't get the jab, and she's really happy she didn't. In fact, my cousin talked to me today, and she's gotten the boosters, and I don't know how many, but she's like, I'm done. I'm completely done with this. I'm sick of it. I didn't feel good. So we're starting to see him waking up. And she's like, I wish I would have never got any of them. I'm like, well, I tried to tell you that a couple years ago, but she had to feel sick, you know, in order to really realize that. So it's, yeah, the shows like Janine have been a big impact for even people like my mom that's wondering what the hell is going on, that's never been exposed to any of this stuff before.
Well, then
Yeah.
what was the announcement? Was what was the article that made the big splash about how they're asking for a COVID amnesty or something along those lines, where we can just you know, bury the hatchet and realize that we all got duped? Did you see that article?
Oh, I didn't.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
I'll drink to that.
And of course, you know, everybody on this side is like, are you kidding? You beat the shit out of us for how long?
Yeah.
You know, people lost jobs. They, you know, it's interesting that article came out and when it did.
Well, you know, there is a big element of people who can't wait to say, I told you so, fuck you.
Right.
I think that that's not going to help anybody, because it's where we go when we go all, right? So it's a time of forgiveness and compassion. And, you know, and when they do wake up, we've got to be there for them. But I don't know, there's going to be more of us doing different roles, because I honestly believe we all chose to come in and have missions, right? And as nuts as that sounds, sometimes I sometimes say that out loud and I think, what am I saying? It sounds crazy, but it is true. And we all had these contracts and we all had different roles to play, and everybody has a kind of superpower or a different type of approach to something. And I think as a group of people, the truthers, if you want to call them that, which I think I'm kind of getting used to, is you know, we all frequency match different types of people on different parts of their journey. So where I came in useful for people is different to, say, Nicholas Veniamin, is different to Charlie Ward, is different to any of the other guys that popped up during this time. And of course, there's all the truthers that existed before that. And they're very interesting. You've got the likes of David Wilcock, David Icke, Jordan Sather, and people like that, who did lots of good work in the run-up. Even Alex Jones, you know, did a huge amount of waking up. But then you've got all the infiltration, then you've got the infighting, and then it's all confusion, because it's God's plan. It's just brilliant. It's genius. You know, we're constantly being asked to dig deeper, and everything gets washed up to the surface in our personal lives. And that's what COVID really did for people. It was, we saw people for who they really are. We saw people for who's really brave and connected to God, and who's scared and wants to be a slave, you know. And in the middle of that, you've got all the people that literally don't know anything about what's going on and were completely duped and mind controlled and conned, you know. So it's a very interesting I didn't expect this to last this long. I thought when I started the podcast, I thought it would be over by Christmas 2020, and here we still are doing this.
Well, gosh, this has been good. I mean, Jordan Maxwell, even George Carlin, you know, to some degree. You know, Yuri Bezmenov. I mean, this information has been out there. It's just, it's been out there.
Yeah.
And I've been a fan for a long time of, you know, that kind of education, but never did I think that it was going to be so applicable in my lifetime. You know, what words mean, and, you know, spelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I've been really waking up for about 30 years, and it's a process. And I got handed the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I think I said this on stage a few times in 1999 by a Canadian comedian in Manchester, funnily enough. And I read that and crapped my pants, because I was like, oh my God, they're going to kill us all. And and they do this all the time. And it's like, wow. And then 9/11 happened, which I think is also a massive wake up event for a lot of people.
Right.
But you see, because our lives are like 70, 80 years, you know, you don't expect it to happen in your lifetime, because it's such a Goliath task to get rid of this cancer that we've had in this realm. And it's such a Goliath task to get billions of people to detach from their brainwashing, because that's what's happened, you know. And it's weird that there's such a small amount of people that just didn't get brainwashed, didn't buy it, and then had the balls to stand up to it. It's because it took guts, and everybody watching this that didn't have that and didn't wear this, you're all heroes as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And it continues to take guts, but we're getting a little bit of relief from that, I think. I remember Joe and I were at an event. Well, it was a production thing we were doing for to help out Republicans, and it's when I became aware of the fact that they had no idea what was going on. And I had a conversation with a fellow. I don't remember what it was that I said. He said, "Oh, so you're a conspiracy theorist?" And I said, "Joe, what's the difference between a fact and a conspiracy?"
A few months.
This is across the room, and he just says, "A month." And I looked at the guy and I'm like, "There you go." And he had nothing to say. But now it's more like an hour. You know,
Right.
it's crazy how quickly this stuff is getting you know, cycled through.
Well, you can see it everywhere. I mean, when I started my podcast, I thought I was the only person. I wasn't the only person in Ireland, but I felt like I was, and it was very isolating. You know, people were looking at me weird in the street. But then over time, like there's this cafe I like to go to. I remember a few months ago, I was sat there having a cappuccino, and this woman walked past, and I'd played tennis with her once, like a couple of years ago, and she just ran over to me and said, "Mark, keep up the good work," and then ran off. And I was like, okay, that's like, you know, I'm reaching some people. And you know, the kids around here have all watched my poems and things like that. I think it's been a big help in, you know, I didn't realize locally whether anybody would be watching anything. And then obviously I had no idea when I came to the States. Firstly, I literally remember pulling up, I think it was Grants Pass, is that Oregon? And then we were outside this 100-year-old barn, which was the nicest venue of the whole tour. And it was really hot. And I thought, who the fuck is going to know me here? And then this big truck pulled up, and I was like, oh, it was early in the tour. So I thought, oh, maybe someone's coming to shoot us. and the really huge guy with massive Popeye arms, window goes down, and he goes, "Mark Attwood, cunt!" And I was like, oh, I'm in the right place. And I, you know, felt pretty relaxed then. But how the hell did I get in the country?
Right.
How? You know,
Southern border.
Yeah. But Janine said the same thing. I mean, you know, how did she get in? It's like, you know, people keep asking that question, and I'm like, well, they just waved us in.
Yeah.
So,
Kind of like the Capitol building.
The hits
just like
that. Just like
that.
Yeah. Capitol.
Come on in.
Come in. The water's
exactly.
lovely. Come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is strange as fuck.
You don't say it.
all of this is strange as fuck, because the world is not what we think it is at all. I think even guys like us who've been reading stuff for decades are going to be shocked at what's going to come out.
Yeah.
Honestly do.
I was blown away. I mean, just meeting the folks that I met on the Truth Tour, you know, and I have been studying this stuff for years and years and years. Didn't think that anything was going to surprise me. And, you know, my jaw was gape for days. My mind was blown repeatedly over and over and over with how many layers there are to this.
Yeah.
It's massive. It's just, when all of history is a lie, as the truth starts to reveal itself, it's boy, it's a process.
Well, it's not just history, it's the nature of reality.
Right.
It's everything, everything. And it's hard to hold that thought. I don't know if you guys found the same thing, because, people say 3D to 5D and 4D and all of these different kind of things. And all of that is true. I mean, someone said to me the other day, what's all this nonsense about dragons and fairies and UFOs? And I'm like, well, this is my experience. I saw a dragon. I saw a dragon flying at night, made of light. I saw a UFO, a big ship. The stars talked to me. How can you not talk about this stuff? Because, these are real experiences. I'm not making shit up. These things happened. And demonic possession and demonic attacks and all of this stuff, I've experienced those my entire life. And I think I said on stage, I went on the Charlie Ward show and didn't know what I was going to say, and started talking about demons trying to recruit me when I was about 3 or 4 years old. And I thought I got offline and I was like, I'm ruined, my business is ruined, everything's ruined. But the opposite happened. Thousands of people emailed me and said, yeah, same thing happened to me. And then, so, the nature of this reality is the thing that interests me the most, because we know nothing. We've been hoodwinked completely. And it's what an amazing time to be here, right?
Well, I think that's why the Truth Tour is so important, because you start meeting other people, because, we've been, at least we have the internet to do stuff like this. Otherwise, you have no idea how to connect with people that have been through some of these similar things, and to watch some of the things that Scott has told me about, and then I'm learning from you, and then you hear other people talking about them. I mean, I haven't really had many woo-woo experiences, if you will, but I'm more open to it, and I'm starting to hear more and more, and it makes more sense, and it makes a lot more sense than what we've been told. And we've been completely kept away from, Darwinism comes in, and then you're kept away from your creator. And it's such an amazing world that exists, or that we're on the precipice of. Once we get rid of all this evil, we can't even imagine what our creator really intended for us. I mean, that's really exciting. It makes you a lot more spiritual when you hear what is coming. It's like that's what, if I was a creator, that's what I'd have in mind. Not all this, because I've always wondered, like, why is there so many wars and death and poison? Where's all this shit come from? Well, now we're learning. So that's what's so as dark as this gets, it's so exciting what's actually coming after it. Because we always want to let people know about the positivity that's coming. So,
oh, huge. And when you said like the wars and where's all this shit coming from, and they blame us, and there's people in the pub or at the school or wherever, and they're saying, oh, the planet's overpopulated, we need to get rid of people. I say, well, so let's start with your family, shall we? And then they say things, because they don't think about it like that.
Right.
They just don't think it through. And then they say shit like, man is ruining this beautiful planet. And it's like, well, it isn't us that's doing it, it's them. They've been doing it to us and then making us take the blame. So we're constantly in a state of shame and guilt. The whole system is designed to keep us in shame and guilt and to keep our 4 bodies apart. This is why they changed the frequency of the music. That's why deuterium and fluorides in the water. That's why we have GMO crops and food. It's all designed to keep us on the farm, but not connected to God at all, so that they can just keep farming us and keep us busy with money and nonsense. It's nuts. They're a bunch of cunts, and we're going to take them down.
That's right.
Everybody wants to talk about slavery, but only 200-year-old slavery and before. They don't want to talk about the slavery that's happening now.
No, because they don't think they are.
Whether it's open slave markets in Libya, like quite literally right now, or where you can buy a person for $400, or the different idea of how we're all enslaved to this system. But you have people completely ignoring the facts, because we've all been trained to be drug addicts at this point. We just want that hit of brain chemicals, that serotonin and whatnot that we get every time somebody likes a post, or we all want to
Dopamine.
belong to something, and everybody's really eager to conform to the narrative in order to get that fix. And I think it's broken us in so many ways.
Well, you know, they do how many years of indoctrination, education? It's like from 4 to 21, 22. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is a training ground. They
Yeah.
train you to be a good, not bright enough to operate the machines, but not too bright to realize you're being stuffed up the arse by the American dream, which you have to be asleep to believe, as George Carlin said.
You know, I wanted to bring someone because we had an amazing conversation last night with Nick Sylvester, and it's cool because he's very humble, very subtle. He doesn't have any social media. And I even asked him today, like, what do you want me to put on the Rumble video? He says, nothing. I said, I figured. But he said that a lot of truthers, they, if you will, they fail to talk about the children. And that's a big reason that I, you know, really started standing up. And, you know, at first, what was cool is I would start connecting Nicholas Vignamin with some guests. And then over time, you know, started my own podcast again. And then Scott and I finally started this, you know, this summer. And, but that's been the biggest thing. Cause like, I can't imagine knowing with all these artists, and, you know, I've learned when they're covering their eye, and it's part of the deal is to turn a blind eye to the pedophilia and everything that goes on with children. But you know, that was the biggest thing for me, because my job as an uncle and as you know, I've been an outdoor ed counselor for at-risk youth. Like once I started hearing about that, and you know, and like I've talked about, my dad was a pharmacist and he was a man of the people, and I just figured I need to go start talking about this. And Scott warned me, like, hey, you know, this isn't for everybody. So we would love to hear a little bit of insight on maybe what you've went through in discovering what happens to children. And we don't have to go real deep, but please feel free to talk a little bit about that, if you will.
Well, I was abused as a kid. My dad was abused when he was a kid. My mum was abused when she was a kid. And all of this kind of realization came over time. And I think it was probably about 10 or 12 years ago. My previous business was internet marketing, right? So I've been an internet marketer for 20 years or more, and I teach it, and I've done seminars all over the place. And I did a seminar once on blogging for SEO, search engine optimization. And that got me involved. I won't go into too much detail, but it got me involved in a lawsuit against a paedophile ring in England, like a $200 million lawsuit. And the lawyers involved in that demolished the case over time. So I learned, because I think God places us or gives us these experiences so that we know what we're doing, you know, as the human version of us has enough experience, not only to be equipped to do this job, whatever this job is, because I think everybody in the world has a calling. And once you finally get called, you've got enough tools in your box because of your life experience to be able to do that particular calling, if you choose to accept it, because it's still a place of free will. And so I got exposed to this, and I saw this, and I learned a very valuable lesson about how the cabal has agents all over the world ready to pounce on things like this, so they can do a controlled demolition. Because even 9/11 was a controlled demolition. They're very good at problem reaction solution, which is the Hegelian dialect, which most of us know about, but also in how to demolish something in a controlled sense, so that it wears the opponent down. So in this particular case, there were like 30 or 40 men in their 60s and 70s that were all terribly, terribly abused by Catholic priests. And they all got very excited, and I watched and I listened to all their testimonies, and it was heartbreaking to listen to what these guys went through. My sexual abuse was light compared to what these guys had. My dad's was bad, but he never told me about it before he died. I found out later, so I never got a chance to talk to him about it. My mum's was fairly light, but it was still sexual abuse with a kid. And I got to see these people firsthand, how they operate, and that was shocking. And I was under massive demonic attack at the time as well, which led me to be suicidal 4 or 5 years ago. But then I got that's when I got the call. I was supposed to do something, and I somehow got my shit together, and I got healers appeared from all over the place. I had lots and lots of work to do myself, which is why I talk about healing a lot on my show. Because I think we all need a lot of healing, especially after this is all released. And when COVID hit, I knew it was coming. I didn't know exactly when or what format it would take, but I knew what it was immediately. And it was kind of the New World Order trying to implement itself, but I think it was actually the good guys using their plan as a cover to get rid of them. So it's like a double bluff scenario. And during that time, I started seeing, I mean, it was, for me, it's always been about the kids. I mean, one of the, I've written a lot of poetry during this period, which is kind of narrated the last couple of years in poetical form, poetry videos. And I had this poem came out called We See You, which was, I felt, I can feel it now. It was God talking through me to be able to make a statement to them. And I'm not saying I'm important at all, but this poem has been read out. And, if I died tomorrow, this probably is my legacy, because it's been read out at satanic ritual abuse events in Australia and other places. And it's just, wow, and it's led me to then be able to interview people who've really been through it, like Gloria Masters in New Zealand, like Jeanette Archer in the UK. And Jeanette Archer in the UK actually witnessed the Queen of England transform into a reptile in a satanic ceremony underneath Windsor Castle, I think. And, these people aren't making this stuff up. And they've just, and also getting to meet Kathy O'Brien on the tour was just extraordinary, because she wrote the incredible book, Transformation of America, which, and I saw her being interviewed about 15 years ago, I think, with David Icke, where she was talking about Bill Clinton and George Bush hunting children, including her naked, drugged children, through the woods. And I've been exposed to these things for a very long time, and I think I was exposed to them so that I could be not hardened to it, but able to hold that, because I think people really, really don't believe this. They really don't understand that this is an industrial scale business. And it's not just a business for money. And that's the other problem people have, is because they still think that corporations and pharmaceutical companies and everything else are doing this for money. They're not. The people that own all of this stuff own all the money. They can print money on demand. So why do they have taxes? You don't need taxes. If you can print as much money as you like, why do you need to tax people? I mean, it's just simple things like this that people don't get. And these companies they're not businesses designed to make profit. They are there to hide the vast machinery of abusing and eating children. That's the biggest industry on this planet. And there's 22,000 children every single day for at least the last 70, 80 years. I mean, maybe longer. And that's 1 billion kids. And if you're not pissed off about that, then when are you going to be pissed off? But I think the biggest problem we've had is convincing people that that's really happening. I've got a really good friend of mine who's quite well known, who got brought up in children's homes and care, and was definitely mentally abused. And, he's spent the last 30 years talking about the system being wrong and abusing kids and how bad it is. And he's like a campaigner, but even he wouldn't believe me. Right. And I've been telling him about this stuff for 10 years. And last time I saw him, he said, "You're in a cult." And I was like, okay. And I was sending him my poems in 2020. And after about the third, fourth poem, he sent me a message. This is like one of my best friends for 30 years. And he sent me a message saying, "You're going down a very dangerous path. Stop sending me these poems." And I was like, okay, and a big part of this whole spiritual process has been about letting go, because that's what I got told by God. Let go. You have to let go of everything. And that's really what this is all about. We've got to let go of our beliefs in the systems, the education system, everything we know about history, everything we know about science, everything we think we know about money, society. It's all, we've got to let go of all of it, even family, and that's one of the things that COVID has done. It's destroyed lots of families and friendships and marriages, and And part of me kind of thinks that that's a good thing, although I can't exactly explain why or what it's going to look like the other side.
Right.
Excuse me.
Well, the truth is a commitment. I mean, it really is a commitment. But what for you was the catalyst where you felt like you had to you had to speak to the world about this?
Well, I've been speaking about this stuff on Facebook and to people in person for at least a decade, and lost lots of friends doing that. It's not been an easy journey in that respect, because it's been going on for me for quite a long time. But when it all kicked off in March 2020, I was just back from a trip to Mauritius, and I saw the masks in the airport in Paris, and I was like, "Fuck, what's going on? This is really," the energy was really fucking strange. But then I kind of knew what was happening, but I think it was about 3 months into it where I got the call from God. It was like, "You need to go on YouTube," and I was like, "That's a very strange request from an almighty being," and it was so strong. I just couldn't not do it. And then all this poetry came out, and I've always been a poet, but I've not written much for years. But all this just started flowing out, and I literally didn't know what I was going to talk about. But I'm, 2.5 years and 500 videos later, I'm still doing it.
Wow.
Which is
Wow.
nuts.
So so for the people that, I think a lot of the people that are watching at least our show, they're somewhat privy to this information, and obviously for you. But if someone stumbles across this video and it's like, well, what are they talking about? Where do we direct them to find out that this actually is real? What would you say to that type of person?
Well, the realization that it's real is a very personal journey, I think. And I think, my route to it was really pre-internet. I was trying to download videos and files back when it was all like on the phone going all that stupid noise it used to make. And it'd take hours to download a 5-minute video, but I was desperately hungry for the knowledge because I was being pushed to find it. My soul was looking desperately for, I want more information. And I've studied this stuff for years and years. And I think some of the best material out there are David Icke's books. You just go and get a couple of go and read The Biggest Secret. And, and Icke was, I think, chosen because he knits it all together, and it becomes, oh my God, that's obviously true. And if you've only got to look at talking of The Biggest Secret, he named in 1998 Prince Philip, Jimmy Savile, Edward Heath, who was the Prime Minister when I was a kid, as paedophiles, and a load of other people. And he said, "Take me to court if I'm wrong," and they never did.
Oh,
and I think what it is, it's like an accumulation of things that you come across. And I think the way it's like a dripping taps, if it drips long enough, you're going to fill the bath eventually. And there's I think everybody's got a line that they cross when their consciousness goes, right, I've seen and heard enough things now that I'm convinced that this is true. Saying that, I've never been in a deep underground military base, as far as I know. Who knows? But then the personal spirit, what I'm trying to say here is that you do get recollections of things. So for me, this has been going on for decades for me. And it's just things like starting to see the numbers. So about 10 years ago, I started seeing 1111 everywhere, and then 222, 444. And then, this year it's been 144, massive, and 17. And you can't not notice these things. And, also I've been getting this intuition feeling, which is very physical, which is an energy, a spiritual energy. You can't ignore that. I got told to go and start speaking to the stars by somebody, which I did. And then I got shown a massive spaceship just here. I saw a dragon over there last year at night made of light. I've been prodded and woken up in the middle of the night by entities. I've seen a vortex in my bedroom next to my bed opening up, and I'm just an ordinary bloke, but all these things are too phenomenal. But they're all kind of confirmations. That's what I mean by being a personal journey. My son said to me the other day, "Why don't I see UFOs and fairies and dragons?" And I went, "I don't know. I just don't know." I think he thinks I'm nuts now, but this is part of the whole thing. And so that's what I mean by it being a personal journey, because it's your own route to your own fulfillment of finding out who you really are and what's going on. And by being that person, by being the person that starts to wake up and vibrate at that frequency, we collectively start to change the consciousness of people around us, even physically. This is why the tour was so important, because that did amazing things on a multi-dimensional level.
Right.
That's what I said earlier, because the light in those rooms from the speakers and the participants was huge, and it mustn't be underestimated how powerful that was in the spiritual war on a multi-dimensional level, which is why I think they let us come in the country and do this, because the white hats are 100% in control of everything, or patriots, whatever you want to call them.
Wow.
It-
Go ahead.
Well, it just seems like these conversations with people, normies, friends that aren't quite there yet, that think you've joined a cult, or think you've lost your marbles. It's you accept a certain amount of information that you what we've been lied to about, what the truth may actually be. There's millions of layers of that, but you absorb all this information, thousands of hours and so on. And then someone wants to have a conversation with you about how you arrived there. And you can't exactly condense thousands of hours of research into any given moment. So there's sort of a hard stop, in that kind of communication. And that was what was so liberating and exhausting and awesome and just amazing, being surrounded by people that there's no barrier to the conversation. Like, everybody's done that research. We've already arrived at that central point where we really question things in a very meaningful way. And attempting to share that is tricky business. It's a bit of a minefield, mainly because there is that big gap of knowledge that occurs.
No, that's a really interesting point. There's a lot of friends that kept texting me and saying, "Oh, can you just prove it to me? Prove it to me." And what they really wanted was for me to show them a mainstream media article and that's the instrument of your brainwashing. Why? That's not going to work. And I struggled with this when I started the podcast, because lots of podcasts were taking off at the time, and there was a lot of people doing intel, right? And they're some of the biggest podcasts in this whole thing in terms of audience size. And I was like, I don't think I'm here to do that. I'm here to do something else. And I had to sit with this and think about what was the purpose of this whole thing. I've got my cats here somewhere. And,
bringing the animals.
Well, they just switched places here, and she was like, "Wait a second."
They're cute, but they do interrupt you at the worst times. What was the question? I've got dogs in my head.
Well, we're talking about that.
So where'd you get to this point where? What happened with me was that I just decided to not give a fuck anymore about anything. I wasn't afraid. I don't care, right? Because firstly, my kids thought I was nuts. I think they still think I'm nuts. But I think I've contributed towards saving their lives, and I think they'll realize that one day. And I think that you just gotta not care what anybody thinks about you, because once you get to the point of not caring, you're kind of unstoppable. It's only our fear of ridicule. In my case, it was fear of losing my online business because of being public about this stuff, and that's all dropped away exactly as it's meant to, which is also interesting. And I had a lot of skills to bring to the table, so I helped a lot of truthers at the beginning with my knowledge about internet marketing and things like that, so that they could be able to fund their work, because everybody was working as volunteers for this, and you can't, this takes over your life. So
yeah,
I'm used to having yeah, and I'm used to having a full-time business that earns decent money. For me to do that in the 3D, I needed to do the same, but in a way that was full of integrity as much as possible. So, well, full of integrity, full stop. But and that's been part of this, because David Icke gets slagged off for years and years. I was only doing it for the money. What kind of person really believes that you'd write a book saying that Prince Philip is a paedophile, is doing it for the money? It doesn't. Right. It makes absolutely no sense. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot easier ways to earn money,
right?
Yeah, right. Without being ridiculed and spat on in the street. for years and years. It's extraordinary that these idiots think that that's what it's about. But it's a complicated world. You know, we're in a 3D world where we still need to put food on the table. We still have to pay bills. We still have to have clothes. You know, it's just the way it is. So how do you wake? So what I'm trying to say is that I decided that my job was not actually to wake people up. It was to help people who were already awakened or awakening and entertain them, have fun with them, investigate interesting stuff. Because I was making people laugh as much as I could, even though it was like the middle of World War IV, as 107 calls it. And because you need that. And, you know, America proved that to me, that, you know, the amount of people that came up and said, you saved my life, is just, it's insane.
Wow.
It's very humbling. It's weird because you're just talking to a computer for 2 years. But I did, you know, I did show. I mean, look down here. I'm full of costumes. I've been online as Spider-Man on a trampoline. I'm just having as much fun as possible in the middle of all the madness, because God gave us a sense of humor for a reason, and God gave us lots of things for a reason, and we should use them all. And I don't want to be glib about it. I don't want to think, you know, anybody watching this thinks, well, loads of people have died. I know people are dying all the time. My granddad died at the beginning of COVID because he couldn't understand why he was being locked down. He was in assisted living, and he started punching people because he just couldn't understand it. And he was 92. Within weeks, he was dead, and I had to watch his funeral on Zoom because we were locked down.
Wow.
And you know, I said that on the tour, and I don't say that to gather pity. We've all been through the mill. You know, we've all been through it. And that's why I think it's ordinary people like us that need to come up and start talking to other people, because we're relatable.
Right.
You know, we're relatable people. We're not media personalities. We're not running a slick TV show thing here. We are just talking from the heart with other people that we resonate with, and we're allowing other people to realize that all is not what it seems. And we've become like a place for people to go to when they're being bombarded with fear from the mainstream media. The issue we currently have, I think, is that some people have turned some of those podcasters into gurus, and I keep saying we've got to be anti-guru. And this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to do the tour with Lewis, because he said, this is about we the people. And some of us are good at talking and have experiences that have helped. So that's our job. Other people are better at, you know, looking after kids. Some people are better at, you know, feeding their neighbors, whatever. You know, we've all got a part, and no part is bigger than the other, because we're all in it together, which is a phrase the cabal stole with COVID. But we are, and I'm stealing it back. We are all in it together. And it's do or die. You know, that's the other thing I realize, is that I was willing to die for this.
Right.
I still am. If I have to die, but I've done my best,
Right.
then I'm not gonna go and get the jab and wear the mask and do what they tell me just because I was afraid of dying. And I think that's what this is really about. It's like people are terrified of death because they train us to be terrified of it. But death is not what we think it is.
No, I agree. Has there been a story or a person that finally came around and that finally came up to you and said, you know, I thought you were crazy, but something happened and now I'm willing to look into it? Because I would think if people are hearing some of us talk, that they'd be like, okay, I want to at least hear what they've looked into. Like there's a film called Fall of the Cabal, but has there been a story for you where you've really had someone reach out to you and go, you turned me around?
Well, I couldn't tell you what I did to do that, but I did get hundreds of people say that to me in person in the States. And I've had thousands of emails saying, you woke me up, and you woke my sister up, and you woke my husband up. And thank you.
Awesome.
And, you know, you stopped me being suicidal because I thought it was the end of the world. And then I found you being an idiot online, but doing these poems and things like this. And, you know, and it's not just me, there's hundreds of us.
Right.
And meeting them, and everybody's, like I said, it's frequency matching. So my frequency matches the people that need to have that. Yours the same. And then, you know, and what I like about the Truth Tour and chats like this is collaboration, because going forward to rebuild this world, we've got to collaborate, which is why we can't be pissed off with people for not waking up quicker. We've got to feel sorry for them and be there for them and get as much healing into them as possible, because there's a massive job going forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, those conversations have changed quite a bit, I've noticed. And I think COVID, as horrible as it's been, has been a bit of a gift in that regard. Because I think everybody's waking up to the fact that they've been lied to, and they were so deeply convicted in their assertion that you must get the jab and you're doing it for other people, and how selfish of you to, to think too much about this. Just do it. And so now when you have those conversations, they already know they've been duped. They already know something's not right. They're still clinging to that need to belong to something. They're still clinging to that desire for a sense of normalcy, and that ship left a long time ago. There's no normal. There won't be normal for, probably for a very long time. But it facilitates a different kind of conversation. Since I've been back, I've talked to a couple of people. I had a friend that I had a technical question about, an audio setup, and he asked me what I was doing, and I said, "Oh, it's woo-woo stuff. It's not your thing at all," kind of a thing. And it prompted a conversation where, he kind of alluded to agreeing, on many levels with things that he never would have agreed to before. So it's kind of a shit show. The invalid running the country joke is run its course, and the VP that's even worse without the excuse, and the it's been absolute insanity. So whenever
Pelosi's husband,
when I ever wonder, and the date gone wrong, but when I hammer time, but when when I get into this thing, we all ask ourselves regularly, because we're in some pretty uncharted waters. Am I crazy? Is this nuts? I know I do it all the time. Like, is this an agreed upon lie kind of a thing? Nietzsche, it's you come to the realization, well, when I look at what's being presented as reality, it's way more insane than what I'm thinking. Way more insane. Oh, yeah. And I think other people are starting to come along, because it's gotten so absolutely ridiculous on every level.
I was in LAX last week, and had to wait a long time to log in. So I went to the bar and I did a show and had a beer. And there was two great Mexican guys working at the bar, and they had masks on. And I had a beer, and I went, "Why have you got that mask on?" Yeah. He went, "Oh, because I've been feeling poorly recently." I said, "Well, that thing is going to make you even worse, because you're just recycling your own carbon dioxide. What the fuck are you doing?" And I said, "There's all that COVID stuff is bullshit." And he took his mask down. He went, "Yeah, I knew it was bullshit." I said, "Why are you wearing a mask then?" He said, "I don't know." And then he took it off.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I said, "Why did you have that on?" And he said, "I don't know. It's just habit." And I was like, wow. Because it's like everybody. So my intuition is that when this has been backed up with Katie Rain and a few other people that I've spoken to, my intuition is that God knows every single thing about us, everything, right? Knows our level of consciousness, knows whether our heart is good or bad, knows everything we've ever done, in life, good or bad. And people like me have openly said I've done lots of stupid things in my life that I regret. And here I am talking about this stuff. And I think that's important, because everybody has, right? So you become relatable, because we're all finally admitting that we're human and we're flawed, but we've been demonically attacked. We've all been demonically possessed our entire lives without realizing it, and the devil whispers in your ear, and before you know it, you're sniffing coke, or you're shagging a prostitute, whatever, all these things that
or both.
But yeah, at the same time.
Usually at the same time, I think.
But you know what I mean? It's like all these things that you wouldn't normally say, "Oh God, yeah, fuck that up," or whatever. And I think they've got a machine, like a consciousness machine, that is directing this. Because I had a vision a couple of years ago I just saw, I get these occasional really strong visions, and this one was like a huge multi-dimensional chessboard with billions of pieces, and we were all the pieces, and we were being moved precisely as was required to achieve the outcome. And that vision has not left me, and I still this is a war on consciousness, as Graham Hancock said on the first video to be deleted by TED 10 years ago, when they banned him for talking about the war on consciousness. him and Rupert Sheldrake, who talked about the morphic resonance field, which is also fascinating stuff that they don't want you to know about, right?
Of course.
So it's all driven by consciousness. And I honestly believe that the plan, the Q plan, the God's plan, is designed to save as many lives as possible. As we, if you're trying to remove a large cancer from a body, which I don't recommend anybody does, because you can cure cancer with MMS and chlorine dioxide and all those other good things. But the analogy is that if you're going to remove something, you don't just rip it out. You've got to take it out carefully. And I think that's where we're at. I think it is being taken out carefully. And what you just said about Pelosi is hilarious, because if in the middle of all the darkness, I mean, the Pelosi family are dark as fuck, right? But in the middle of it, we've had all this amazing humor. I mean, look at Biden on his bike, falling off his bike, falling up the stairs. I mean, it's like,
and his legs are like the legs of a 40-year-old. So the legs don't even match a guy that's, nearly 80.
Exactly.
Like, come on.
So we're getting given all these beautiful signs to keep us chipper as this extraction is happening. That's my view. If I'm wrong, we're all fucking dead anyway.
Right.
So who cares?
You wonder how much of it is performative, how much of it is theater, how much of it is real, because there's a little bit of each of that going on. We're
Well, I was going to say, let's talk about the producer that's part of the Treasury as well. You know his name, don't you?
Yeah, I know you're talking
the
about
film. I can look it up.
Mnuchin.
Yeah, Mnuchin. Are you familiar with Steve Mnuchin?
Yes, I remember that name, but I can't remember what he's done.
Well, so he's produced several films in Hollywood, and
big budget,
huge films. So if there is,
he sounded like Trump there. He's like, big budget, huge film,
huge.
Ask anybody, they'll tell you it's huge film.
But if you look him up, and if you look up the timeline of the films he's produced, right, and then you look at when his IMDb credits stop, like right around 2017, and that he's been busy. If he's working, which I believe, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I believe this is what's going on. He's helping produce a lot of the things that people are seeing, the normies are seeing in the media, to wake people up, have the humor, to have people question things. I mean, the guy is brilliant, and I believe, I don't know what his role was with this Secretary of Treasury. I'd have to look it up, but anyway, you look at all that, and it's pretty amazing to see what's going on behind the scenes. It's just one of those other pieces of the puzzle to look at, to make you go, oh, well, he hasn't been working on films for a couple of years. What else is he up to? And so it's one of those aha things that I noticed when I was looking him up on IMDb. And the guy's brilliant. And even talking to Kevin Hoyt, talking to Nick Sylvester, a lot of the people that we're seeing, they're CGI, they're doubles, clones, whatever you want to call them. They're not, a lot of these people have been dealt with. And so that's what I think a lot of the normies are going to be like, wow. I mean, Biden is not Biden anymore. It doesn't take much to figure it out.
No, he hasn't. I said this 2 years ago in a video, but it's obviously not the original Joe Biden.
Right.
And Hunter's gone as well. They've all gone. They've all been replaced by something.
Yeah.
But it's also science fiction-y that you do sound like a lunatic, because if you say, well, Joe Biden's not really, I've said this 2 years ago to somebody in my garden, I said, Joe Biden's not the president. There wasn't even an election. And they look at like you're completely nuts, because in the newspaper it says he is. So
right.
We're in the greatest computer game ever built.
Yeah, I tell my mother, my 83-year-old mother, all the time, because she'll say, but I saw it, Scott. And I'll say, did you saw it on TV? And she said, yes. And, I remind her, I've sent her the video of the whale coming up out of the basketball court, and, all the, we've got college students with deepfake software that can produce the most convincing results. What do you think DARPA's working with? I mean,
yeah, but they've been showing us as well.
Stuff back in the what was it, in the 60s with the facility in Laurel Canyon. So, I mean, they used to be, rule of thumb was 15 years ahead of what we're currently seeing, but I think now it's more like 100 or 200 years and beyond.
I think it's thousands of years ahead. Well, I mean, have you listened to the testimony of Donald Marshall? Have you heard of him?
Oh, very much.
Oh, yeah. I talk about him quite a bit, actually.
Yeah. So, because you're a musician, right? So you probably caught your interest. But
Yeah.
you think about
What do I think about Donald?
no, I was just going to say, if his story is true, which I think it is, you think about the technology that enables you to take someone's consciousness out of their body once they hit REM. That's basically, and then put him into another body, and then this is crazy shit. That technology is way ahead. It's not 100 years; it's thousands of years, millions of years ahead. I mean, it's possibly ancient.
Right. And then the
He just-
technology that Donald has used, so he's not a songwriter per se. He thinks songs up, and there's technology that basically records his thoughts. So I'm actually in touch with a woman that runs a lot of media for him. Her name's Josie Dutch, and if you look her bio up on Instagram, and right under her name, it's a link, and it has the link to many documents of Donald Marshall. And then there's a website called Donald Marshall Revolution. So I'm literally in touch a couple times a week with Donald Marshall's right hand woman. So it's been very intriguing, and to learn that many of the songs that we have listened to most of our lives. I mean, the first song that Donald has stated that he created was Lady, the one that Lionel Richie and Kenny Rogers, and he was basically a kid, and his consciousness was, this sounds out there, but this is the story. His consciousness was transferred to a deep underground military base when he was 5. His mother was part of this, unfortunately, and he was, crying, and I think he could sense that they were going to do something to him. And they said, well, what do you do? Do you do anything like sing or dance, etc.? And so he came up with the song. So I don't know if the technology was near him or exactly what happened in that moment, but from them he became the goose that laid the golden egg. I mean, and so it's a secret. So the reason why I'm glad you brought this up. The reason why I'm vocal about Donald Marshall is due to the cloning, due to everything that's been done to a lot of these people who have sold their souls, if you will. I don't think a lot of them really realize the depth of what they were getting into. And so they all want this cloning crap to end. It's awful, and there's a lot more information on that. But Donald's trying to help expose that, and basically I am someone that is speaking on behalf of him and Josie Dutch. And also there's I think it's Aldo Constantini. There's Phil Chupa. You can look up Josie's friends on Instagram, and you can see who I'm talking about. And there's a few victims of the consciousness transfer, and they talk about it. But the reason they can't be interviewed, because Nicholas and I, Venyamin and I have had these conversations, wanting to get these people to come out and be on shows such as this. And they're afraid that if they do speak again, that they will then be conscious transferred, and they will be beaten in their clone, if you will, until death. And so this sounds really outrageous, but time will tell. And so that's a big part of this. So I looked very deeply into the Donald Marshall story.
Good, everybody should, and people like Max Spears telling us about the super soldiers and all this off-world stuff, Solar Warden, General Byrd in Antarctica, just so many incidences, and for me, proofs of incredible technology that is thousands and thousands. Because this is literally a farm, right? We have been born into a farm, and we are the farm animal, and that's quite a big, difficult thing. It's like, have you ever seen Chicken Run, the Mel Gibson voiced plasticine chicken film?
It was a while ago. I don't know if I did see that, but yeah.
There's just a great line in it where Mel Gibson's like trying to get them all to escape, because they literally get turned into chicken pies, right, just over there, but they're all in this walled area, and they try to build this airplane to escape. And I think Mel Gibson's character says, "Come on, you're a bird, fly." And the chicken, this big fat chicken, turns around and says, "I can't fly, I'm a chicken." And that's just, that's what we're like. We are self-slaughtering sheep. I mean, if you owned a farm and you could get the animals to walk to the abattoir and kill themselves, it'd be great, wouldn't it? Be amazing. And that's what we are. We're self-slaughtering sheep. But some of us are here to try and stop that happening. you know. And we got, you know, when it was a week ago, I was in a meeting with 107, and he was talking about what was coming up in the next few weeks and where the narrative should be, because we need to get past this next hurdle. And he did say, don't talk about the UFOs, forget all that bullshit for now. And I was like, well, I was like, he's talking about these like he knows everything about them. And I said, so who's in the UFOs then if it's not aliens? And he said, I'm not going there. Just forget about that. Do that. And I wanted to go further. I wanted to say,
Of course.
well, what the fuck are these ships that I can call in? I can call the ships in. I've seen spaceships. Why can't I talk about them? Because it's all connected, you know? And it is, you know, it's a spiritual war. We're all spiritual soldiers. All these things about technology and things like, you know, one of the things that really annoys me about this whole time that we've been in is and I'm not denigrating anybody for this, but when people talk about the RV and all of this kind of stuff, it's like, this is nothing to do with money. You know, money's just a thing. It's not, you know, and if so many people, one of the things that really frustrated me is that a lot of people have put their lives on hold because they've just invested everything they've got into silver and XRP, and they're expecting it to go up one day and they're suddenly going to be rich. What's the point in being rich in a world where you're still a slave? And, you know, and you've got every government on earth wants you and your family dead. You know, that's part of this that I find really interesting, because, you know, where we're going is going to be mind-blowing, right? And I think it's soon. It better be, because I'm getting a bit tired of.
Yeah, no shit.
I got to tell you, we were at the same meeting that you're speaking of, and I happened to be sitting next to Katie Rains. So
Yeah.
you could imagine her reaction, you know. But you had showed me earlier that day, you had showed me pictures of the craft that you'd photographed, and several other people as well. It was pretty amazing. I'm seeing these more and more all the time, and I've had my own experiences. But that very evening where we were staying, it was beautiful starry sky, and we looked up and I said, hey, Joe, have you ever seen anything like that? And I kind of guided him over, you know, from the brightest star. And I said, just focus on that for a minute. And then you could see all these little amber lights turning on.
Yep.
And then there was like, it looked like there was a light on top of this thing. You couldn't see the source of light, but you saw the shaft of light coming off of it. It kind of illuminated the triangular borders.
Mm-hmm.
And we both just sat there like, yep.
I hadn't seen anything like that before.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy
And
how
it's worldwide. You know, I was in Morocco 6-7 weeks ago, and there was a kid, 14-year-old kid there, son of one of my friends, and he'd been taking pictures, and he, you know, every night, because he's got this beautiful house that just looks straight out over the sea, no light pollution, nothing. It's happening everywhere. And, you know, one says that they're not aliens, but what I think they possibly, somebody said this to me, that they're actually extraterrestrials, not aliens, right? And what does extraterrestrial mean? It means coming from the other land. And this kind of ties in with the Earth being a torus field and we being under this Antarctic wall, under this dome, on top of this huge place, much, much bigger than Earth, or what we think Earth is. And see all these other lands we're going to get access to. I mean, that would be amazing. I mean, I don't get bogged down in these arguments, and some people go, the Earth's flat, the Earth's flat. I don't care, because it doesn't matter right now.
Right.
It's intellectually interesting. And yes, we know they've lied to us about everything, so it's likely to not be the ball in space that they told us it is. But how does it help us right now? Well, not really, but it'd be great to find out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why we are turning to tarot card readers and spiritual people for our news, right?
Yeah.
Because they make more sense than anything else.
Yeah.
Well, the actual news is just, I mean, it's such obvious indoctrination. It's such obvious manipulation. And, you know, I tune into it just so that I have a bearing. You know, I've gotten so out there in many ways that I need to know what people are consuming and where they're coming from. And that's changed a great deal. You know, Tucker Carlson has talked probably, I don't know, at least a dozen times about UFOs this year, and you know, pointed out just some of these crazy things. But there's this whole world that people aren't aware of. Like right now, we have boots on the ground in Brazil to prevent a revolution. We have boots on the ground in Haiti to prevent a revolution. These are all going on right now. There's the issue in Ethiopia. We have boots on the ground in Ukraine, which that would signify a hot war. Why don't we know about that? But that's even more complicated when you delve down into it. But all of this stuff is going on, all of this military activity, all of it's real and verifiable, but none of it is discussed on the mainstream media. We're talking about something Elon Musk said, or some celebrity tweet, or just some absolute bullshit.
Well, I think they're using cover stories, like in Brazil. I think they orchestrated the whole thing so that then they could say boots on the ground because of revolution, but really it's all the white hat ops.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's a load of military exercises going on in the Netherlands right now that have been, but it's not military exercises. It's just being called that because Tom Numbers took off from LA last week and got diverted on his way to Hawaii by two military jets, which is very unusual.
Oh,
because the military would not go through a civilian flight path. There's no need for them to do it unless they're actually doing their job in a active role, not in a pretend role. So
did Tom do a reading on that?
He did a video showing on his YouTube channel showing.
Oh, interesting.
I saw the clip with the fighters off on that.
I think everything's just a cover story, and most of this war has been fought underground and with very high tech, and how the hell they've done it, I can't wait to find out. But I think elements of it have to become visible, so they need all these cover stories to make sense of that visibility to not freak people out, because again, I think the whole plan and the whole operation is designed to save as many lives as possible.
Right. Well, look at ISIS. I mean, I think many of us know that the United States created ISIS. We kind of know that history, but there's a pretty clear documented trail that we're paying as a mercenary army. We're paying ISIS to fight alongside Nazis in Ukraine against Russia. Now that sounds insane, but that's reality. But you don't hear about that on the evening news, do you?
No.
And here's Bob with the weather. No, you don't get any of it. And
no.
But I do think, like you said about that Steve Mnuchin character, the white hats, for want of a better term, are using the same techniques to unbrainwash us and
yes, exactly,
unplug us as they've used against us. So there are loads of films and TV shows that have been incredibly woke and blah 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 recently, but there's also been ones that are incredibly wholesome and have different values. So it's kind of Ethan Lucas called it like a manifesting war going on. But it's like a war on consciousness. It's a spiritual war. It's a multi-dimensional war. It's also a hot war, a 3D war, a 5D war. But it's also this manifesting. And I think, they've used us to manifest the shit that they want. They've used, I realized this years ago when I started understanding that all symbols carry a frequency, and so the colors. So, even when you walk through a city like London, you're being programmed by the buildings. I mean, in London in particular, you can't walk more than 10 feet without being passing a symbol of Saturn, because the London Underground logo is Saturn and the transport logo is Saturn. So the frequency from those symbols have been beamed into here, into the hardware, and then we transmit and create, because we are the incredible power of the human mind to create is the thing that they've hidden from us the most. And if you've ever done ayahuasca, peyote, magic mushrooms, you know what I'm talking about. And if you've ever just had visions, or if your pineal gland is clean and you get visions from God, they are incredible. And we create this reality. So they've been using us to create the reality for us. So we become the self-slaughtering sheep. We're the ones that build the farm that then we stay in.
Because it's fear, nonstop fear propaganda. Look at Halloween was last night, and you think about it, everybody celebrates this whole idea of getting everybody in a state of fear. We watch scary movies, we try and scare the kids, all these costumes, bending reality, and so on. It's kind of interesting how willing we are as participants in this madness, and how, as the powerful beings that we are, we distance ourselves from that power every day just through these rituals, these
Yeah, well,
crazy.
they do it, you know, a medical birth in the West is a satanic ritual.
Yeah.
Just the way birth is, right? We get separated, the umbilical cord gets cut, they don't eat the placenta, they get the thing in the epidural in the spine, so women can't feel anything. They then separate you, and they literally don't ground you, so that it's all part of soul harvesting, right?
Right.
If anybody watching this doesn't believe me, go and look at Janice Barcelo. She knows more about this than anybody on the planet. And they just never stop. They do it right from the beginning, right before you're even here. They're after you because they know who you are. They know everything about you. So I think a lot of us are kind of like sleeper cells.
Which
You
just,
know? I mean, look at Donald Trump, right? I hear tons of different versions of what people think he is, but I very strongly feel like he's not from here. He's very extremely powerful. He's extremely protected, and he's been bred for this job since birth. And that's my feeling. And he's a time traveler. You know, just go and this is one of the other things I help to wake people up. Go and explain those Baron von Trump books from the 1890s by Ingersoll Lockwood. What? How do you...
and the relationship with Tesla.
That's another and his uncle, John.
Yeah,
it's crackers, but it's very exciting, and I think I'm an apocalyptimist.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
I stole that phrase off the internet. I don't know where I first came across it, but I was like, that's exactly it. You know, I've always felt extremely optimistic, and I trust our creator, and I trust us. You know, we've got free will, and we are taking action, and we are affecting things on a level that we don't realize yet how powerful that's been. Because you know, you say that you're fighting a war when you basically just sat in front of a computer talking to people, but on a consciousness, spiritual level, these are the tools that we've got. You know, I haven't got a gun. I can't. Who do I shoot? I don't know who the bad guys are, and I know I don't want to go to prison, so I'm going to do this instead.
Right. Well, Mark, we try to keep these around an hour, and we definitely want to have you back, or have us back, or whatever we've been calling this as far as a co-host. But tell people where they can find you, and we'll tell people where they can find us. And then I think we need to reconvene relatively soon, because this has been awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's great chatting to you, and because we didn't really get a chance to have deep chats in the States because everything was so
fast.
mental.
Yeah,
and
so many people, and yeah.
But you know, your energy and your sense of humor and your knowledge is just great, and I'm really glad you're doing this. If you go to themarkatwoodshow.com, everything's there uncensored, because I have been censored. I lost a YouTube channel, loads of different things like that happen. But I'm on Telegram as The Mark Atwood Show, and I'm on Rumble and BitChute as well, and YouTube. I've still got a YouTube channel by the skin of my teeth. You know what that's like. And just type in Mark Atwood ATT Wood, and you'll find me on all those places.
Cool. And we're primarily on Rumble, TruthStream with Joe and Scott, and all of our links and all our videos. That's the easiest way to keep it simple. And we have our Instagram and our Truth Social and stuff like that.
My Instagram got taken down last week, and I didn't even post anything controversial. I don't know what. They just took it away.
Well, we're supposedly about to have some elections, so I think they've really ramped up their efforts to keep voices like this muted.
Right.
Well, I know we're coming to the end, but I want to add something to that, because I really believe everything's white hat. Okay, everything. So this is what, coming back to the chessboard thing, I think, like, Janine got taken down off YouTube because she was talking about stuff that they want to control the narrative. 107 proved that to me last week. They want to control the narrative in the direction that they want it to go to get the best outcome. So, you know, being taken off YouTube is probably the white hats, not the bad guys.
Right. I would think so.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's strategic. Mm-hmm. You know, this is an unconventional spiritual war, and they're being strategic and controlling. And I think they can see into the future. Well, the Project Looking Glass, they know that if say, for example, somebody's got 1 million followers on YouTube, and then they go so far down this road talking about UFOs, then that will affect consciousness in this way, which will send this percentage of people into suicide, or, you know, so let's not do, let's pull that back a little bit. And I think it's that clever, you know, really do.
Yeah, I agree. I just had, you know, so Bruce Poppy, he, so I have my music video Freedom now on BitChute and YouTube. Well, now it's completely off of YouTube. Bruce put it out there last week, and I've been having them, you know, if anyone pushes it, push the BitChute one. Well, he put, not, I'm not blaming him, this is bound to happen, but he posted the YouTube version on my, so I run Reflection Pool, which is more focused on the Northwest, and it's still out there. It's on Rumble and BitChute. People can go to Joe Rosati Collective and find that. But now my entire YouTube channel for my Reflection Pool local interviews, it's gone. They just wiped it out. I went from one warning, no strikes, right to taking it down. Because I think the music video really hits a nerve. I mean, so, you know, it's brought down my channel. It brought down Good Lion, Nick Alvear from Good Lion. So it's hitting a nerve, but it is what it is. You know, I felt it was poignant, and we'll see what happens with it. So,
but to understand this stuff, and I don't mean to open up a big can of worms, but I think it's important that people look into this. You know, when we're talking about the AI, you know, and it really became obvious to me when there were some Twitter employees talking about, you know, at most they work 4 hours a day. If they want to take 10, 15 days off, no big deal. You know, they talked about how relaxed it was. And I thought that's because it's not really a job. You're there to, you're an extra in a film. But what's really running Twitter, and that's a guess, I don't have any evidence, but I know that D-Wave, NASA, Google, the list goes on and on. They're all run by a creation called D-Wave. D-Wave is a quantum computer, and it's worth watching the keynote speech from Gordy Rose. He's the CTO, and he talks about, you know, you look at this thing and he says, doesn't it look like an altar to an alien god? And he talks about how now we have the ability to actually reach into other dimensions and pull artifacts back. And the reason I bring this up is because these things are so prolific, and it's not just that it's a faster computer, it's the way the computer works with these qubits, and there's a little bit of quantum entanglement in there and whatnot. The AI knows you better than you know yourself. You know, it's time to just come to terms with that. I mean, just your internet activity alone determines all your preferences and so on and so forth, down to the keystroke. And this was something Peter Thiel was doing with Palantir, but quantum computing takes it to the next level. And look into D-Wave. Look where D-Wave is being used. There's a couple different ways to arrive at accomplishing this task. IBM has a completely different method for their qubits and whatnot, but D-Wave is believed to be an architecture that mimics, in some ways, human physiology, because we all have this ability. And with the D-Wave computers, it's mostly a giant deep freeze. It's colder than deep space. I mean, that's what they have to create in order to get these electrons to stay still for a minute and entangle and do what they do. And that's a rabbit hole worth going down, because when you know how prolific these things are and how much they shape the world around you, or your perception of the world around you, kind of like what they did a long time ago with Saturn, it puts it all into perspective, and you really realize that your intuition is, A, it can be trusted, and B, it's the most powerful tool you have at this point with all this manipulation to navigate what is true.
Very well stated.
Yeah, that's why it's such a phenomenal test, because what is life? It's one big initiation ceremony.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, until next time, we'll chat soon. Good luck with your show, with your performance or show this weekend. That's very cool that you're able to do that.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about it. Let's get together again here real soon, next week or so.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, guys. You take care and keep it up.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.